I meant what I said, and I'll keep saying it. And here's why.
Don't stress, live life one day at a time. Don't drink or drug and you'll be fine.
Welcome back to Staying Sober with Papa Joey. Today I want to talk about something that I say on every podcast. Normally it's maybe in the middle of the podcast, but all the time at the end of my podcast. And that is, don't drink or use no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. Now, in the past, I've been accused by people of making it sound like getting sober was easy and staying sober is easy. No, I just say, no matter what happens, you can't drink or use. I didn't say it was easy. Now, for myself, I made it easy. I love drinking. That's all I wanted to do was drink. And I was good at it up until, I got into all kinds of trouble. But I also know myself. I didn't want to make it like a big deal. So for me, I just realized I was done drinking, and I did do it one day at a time. And it was like, okay, I'll do it for, at least a week. And then I kept on going longer and longer, but knowing in the back of my mind I was done. And I went to AA early on in my sobriety. And when times did get a little tough for me, I would go to an AA room, not so much because I wanted to go to a meeting or anything like that. It was mostly because I just wanted somebody to talk to. I just wanted to be out of my house or my apartment and, get out of my head for a while. And I knew if I walked into an AA room, there was always somebody there. Because before I was used to going to a bar. So I just went to an AA room. Sometimes I'd go into the meetings. Some of the meetings were good. I enjoyed them. Some sucked. But I was out listening to other people, talking with other people. And then little by little, my sobriety was coming along, or the length of my sobriety, was coming along. And I quickly learned early on in AA was that there were a lot of people there that were coming and going that were sharing that, they had some time in sobriety and they went back out drinking again. And then for whatever reason, they found themselves back in an AA room or rehab or whatever. And I used to hear people say all the time, well, that's a disease talking. And even early on in my sobriety, and I talked about the disease concept in other podcasts, I'm not going to go into it, but I always said to myself, bullshit. Right? That person's an adult. He chose to pick up a drink, or she chose to pick up a drink. All right? No disease, they just did it. All right? Now, there were times early on in my sobriety where the thought of picking up a drink came to mind. I didn't pick it up. I had a choice, either to pick up or not pick up. I chose not to pick up. All right, that's it. Plain and simple. I didn't have to keep rehashing everything in my mind. Like, if the thought of wanting a drink came, to my mind, I would quickly say, I'm not going to drink, but kind of figure out what's going on right now that I'm feeling that way. Now, if I was anxious and something was bothering me, if I was going through a divorce early on and maybe I was upset about something, getting angry or whatever, then I had to do something else. Go to the gym, go for a walk into an AA room, do something else, go shopping, whatever it was. I just did something else. Sometimes I would just go to bed, or watch TV and then, wake up the next morning. I was like, okay, all right, I got through that and then got on through my day. But always, I was now Joey, the guy who don't drink anymore no matter what. I still had friends. I'm in Florida. A lot of my friends that I drank with were up in upstate New York. And I would go up there and visit, and I'd see my friends, and I would meet them at a bar. And they knew I wasn't drinking, but they could drink. And early on, they'd say, hey, does this bother you? I'd say, no, man, go ahead and drink. And he said, sure, yeah. It's my choice. I don't want to pick up. So I didn't push it on anybody like, hey, if Joey's around, don't drink or anything because we don't want to trigger him. No, I wasn't going to get triggered because I understood why I shouldn't be drinking and why I don't drink now. That's it. And they could do whatever they wanted to do. And to this day, if I see my buddies out, most of the time if I go up to visit some family or whatever, I like to go out and, because I was a musician up there, go out and hear some bands and run into some of my own friends. And if they're drinking, great, buy them a drink, no problem. All right? Because I know why I shouldn't drink. All right? Joey don't drink no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. Was there times when Joey did want to drink? Absolutely. But I didn't. Now, you're watching this podcast, and if you're sober for, some time now, I'm sure there were times in your life that the thought of picking up a drink came to mind, and you just said, hey, I'm done. I'm not going to do it. And you didn't pick it up, right? We can't forget everything that happened in our past, right? There's going to be certain situations that just bring up the old days, or, oh, yeah, man, I used to drink because of that. Oh, yeah, I remember... that might have been like a trigger for me or something like that. It's going to happen, right? So when I tell people don't drink or use no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what, all I want them to start thinking about is you can't pick up a drink or a drug. Now, sometimes it is easier said than done. I never did drugs. Unfortunately, I shared this before, my daughter did, and I lost her 4 years ago to a drug overdose. So, and it's hard. Every time I do one of these podcasts, she's right on my mind, right? Because I had many conversations with her about her drug abuse. I went through 2 overdoses with her, and unfortunately the third one took her life. And, you start playing, could have done this, maybe I should have said this. No, because she did what she wanted to do. She went through the meetings. She actually went to rehab a couple of times, ended up in jail a few times, did like 6 months at one time. I think the longest was 9 months. Came out and she was, hey, everything is great, but she got back in with some of her old friends and, started the drugging again. And it was hard to watch her go through it, especially every time my anniversary would come about, which is August 31st of 1992 is when I first got sober. She'd be the first one to call me, or she'd send me a card and say, I'm so proud of you, Dad. And we always had the conversations like I didn't do anything that she couldn't have done, but she just chose not to. And I've known a lot of people who stopped drinking for some periods of time and went back out. Some ended up getting sober again. Others stayed out, and unfortunately, some bad things happened to them. And nowadays, since unfortunately my daughter's passed, I've met quite a few people who has had a family member that died of drug overdose, or they knew somebody that died of a drug overdose. So it keeps, popping up in my life. And I wish I had the answer for people who are struggling in their sobriety. But we all handle our sobriety the way we feel, or lack of sobriety, I should say, the way we think, we're going to handle it. And sometimes it doesn't go the way that we would hope it would go for someone. So if you're, new in sobriety and you're watching, you stumbled upon this podcast, you got to make that decision, right? Are you done? And if you know you're done drinking or drugging or maybe both, you just got to make a promise to yourself that you're going to do whatever you have to do in order to get sober and stay sober. And that decision has to be yours, nobody else's. I'm sure there's a lot of people that tell you what you should do. They told me, I don't want to hear it. I kept on drinking, got arrested, got fights, totaled cars. I did all that shit, okay? It wasn't until I said, I had enough, then things started to turn. Okay. So if you're new in sobriety, you got to get to that point. Right? Now, nothing says, I hope you're not watching this and go, well, I haven't hit my bottom yet. Fuck that. You don't need to hit a bottom. If you think you got a problem or you know you got a problem, stop it now. Because sometimes those bottoms, you can't get out. You know, my daughter, she had 2 overdoses, like I said, and I don't know, that couldn't have been bottom enough. The second one, she was on a respirator for 4 days, and I would go in and see her, and she'd be like having convulsions and stuff, and I'm there watching her, and again, as a father, you don't know what you do. It's helpless, and I can remember she was 32 at the time, I think, 33 at the time. I can remember when she was in the respirator when I first got there. When I went up to her bed and I looked down at her, all I saw was this little 6-year-old girl when she was 6 years old. Her face, that's all I could see. And it was tough. It was really hard. But anyways, you have to get to yourself to the point where you love yourself enough and you hate what you've done to yourself enough where you'll say enough's enough. And you got to, don't drink or use no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. Find out what you think will work best for you to keep you in the mindset as you're done, okay? If you're somebody that needs help, go get it. AA, the church, online groups, just keep checking out YouTube. Go look at some of my podcasts. You know, if you got to reach out to me, do it. Put something in the comment. If it's something you want to discuss with me, it's soberpapajoey@gmail.com. Feel free to email me. And if you're somebody that needs somebody to talk to, I'll be more than happy to make a phone call, and talk to you and maybe guide you in a certain direction. But you gotta do this for yourself. And I will not tell anybody that if you get sober, you quit, using it, your life is going to be 100% better. Certain areas of your life will be. Others might not be. I mean, I just turned 64 years old, 32 years sober. I'm still dealing with some shit. And some of it's, takes my thinking into some dark places. I shared that on my last podcast, but I had to get myself out of that thinking. So life still goes on, but we're just sober. We're dealing with life, on some sober terms. So I'll always keep on saying, don't drink or use no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what, because I just want to get instilled in people's minds that if it gets a little difficult out there, they know that, hey, no matter what happens, that's one thing I'm not going to do, is go back to drinking or drugging, and now I've got to, do something else. So that's why I say it. I'll continue to say it. And, keep checking out the podcast. If you would, please, hit the like and subscribe. I would like to, grow the channel. I really want to make this more of a personal thing. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. They'll bring some celebrities on, or they'll bring some psychologists or whatever, and they sit back there and the celebrity talks about his drinking days or her drinking days, and the therapist gets all philosophical with everything. Bullshit, man. I don't want to sit there and be entertained by watching some celebrities say, well, this is what I used to do. Now look at me, how great I am. And somebody trying to promote a book or themselves by saying, well, look how smart I am, a psychologist, and I'm going to go deep into the roots of your problem. Fuck that, okay? And I'm sorry. I don't buy into a lot of that shit. Everybody's different. We've got to learn how to handle our situation the best we can with what we got, okay? And what we all have, mostly, is a mind. We got to use it. And sometimes we all have the will at one time or another to fight for something that we want. So you got to get to that point where you're going to fight for your sobriety. Once you start doing that, you're going to appreciate it even more. And when you see how you're growing, and then, of course, shit's going to hit the fan. And then you've got to go, oh, I remember what Papa Joey said. No matter what happens, I can't put a drink in me or a drug. What am I going to do now? And you do what you have to do. So, again, don't drink or use no matter what. And no matter what means no matter what. I'll see you next time. If you
Think about your serenity. Be grateful for your sobriety.